Ever feel like you're stuck in a system, one that's kind of rigged? Like no matter how much you try, you can't climb higher.
Absolutely. And you know what's so interesting? This film, El Hoyo, this Spanish sci-fi thriller, it takes that feeling, that sense of being trapped, and turns it into this terrifying but also kind of relatable reality.
Yeah, it's like, that phrase born on third base. This is like that, but instead of baseball, it's, well, survival, right? We're diving deep into El Hoyo, and we've got your film analysis, the philosophy, even some real world stuff to unpack.
Yeah.
So, for anyone who hasn't seen it, what's the basic premise?
Imagine this. A prison, right. But instead of cells, it's levels, hundreds of them, all stacked on top of each other. And in the middle, there's this huge empty space with these platforms on each level.
Okay, I'm already getting a little claustrophobic just picturing it.
Every day, this platform, it's loaded with this insane amount of food, like a feast. And it starts at the very top, descending, stopping at each level.
So the people at the top, they're basically living the good life.
Exactly. They get their fill, first pick of everything. But as you go lower and lower, well, let's just say scraps would be a luxury.
Okay, so we're talking Hunger Games level of messed up with a little bit of Snowpiercer thrown in. But this whole vertical prison thing, that's where El Hoyo really gets under your skin, right?
Precisely. It's not just showing you inequality, it's making you experience it. You feel that tension, that fear of being on the wrong level.
Oh, and it gets worse. Did I hear right? The levels, they change.
Yeah, every month. And it's random.
Are you kidding me? Talk about a recipe for chaos.
Mm.
1 month you're at the top, the next you're like praying for crumbs.
Right. And that's the brilliance of this setup. It's like this constant anxiety about social mobility, like, will today be a good day? Or will I find myself slipping through the cracks?
It's like that feeling you get when the economy takes a nosedive and suddenly your job, your whole life, feels unstable. And speaking of being thrown into the deep end, our main character, Goring, he volunteers for this whole thing.
Volunteered. Can you imagine?
And not for a reduced sentence or anything. He wants a certified title. What does that even mean in this messed up place?
Right. Your guess is as good as mine.
I mean, it makes you wonder what kind of system, even a messed up prison system, could make someone think, yeah, sign me up for that.
Well, and that's where some of the deeper analysis comes in. This certified title, it's so vague, right? It forces you to ask, how often do we buy into things without really understanding the rules, the risks, even the reward, if there even is one?
So we've got Goring, our guy, right?
Mm.
Kind of idealistic, maybe a little naive, walking into this crazy pressure cooker of a prison.
And that's where El Hoyo really starts digging into, human nature. It's like, how quickly can things fall apart when you don't have enough, When those basic needs, they're not met.
Right, like the food or the lack of it becomes this ticking time bomb.
Exactly. And nowhere is that more obvious than with Trimagasi, Goring's first cellmate, right?
Oh, yeah. Talk about a crash course in Prison Survival 101.
Trimagasi, he's like the poster child for that every man for himself mentality.
Oh, for sure.
He's been on every level, seen it all, done it all.
You get the sense he's not there to make friends.
Not exactly. Remember that knife he has? The one he sharpens?
Oh, yeah, that was creepy.
Yeah, I mean, it's practical, sure, but it also tells you everything you need to know about him.
Right, like, don't mess with this guy.
Exactly. He represents that part of us we don't like to admit is there. The part that's willing to do whatever it takes to survive.
Even if it means,
Even if it means sacrificing your morals, and the film doesn't shy away from that, it makes you ask yourself, in that situation, would I be any different?
And as that platform goes lower each day, you see that question playing out on every level.
Oh, absolutely.
Like, those Black Friday sales where people get trampled for a cheap TV?
Yeah.
It's like that, but 1,000 times more intense.
The stakes are way higher, for sure. The film is so good at building that tension, that claustrophobia.
Oh.
You see those feasts turn into frenzies. Scraps become like gold.
It's a brutal reminder of how fragile things are, how easily order can break down.
Absolutely. And yet you've got Goring in this brutal environment. He's still clinging to some kind of hope.
He's trying to be the better man, right? Like rationing the food, trying to get others to do the same.
You want to root for him, even though you know it's probably not going to end well.
You're like, come on, man, just give in. It's the only way to survive in this place.
But he doesn't, and that's what makes it so compelling. It's like, is it noble to stick to your morals when they seem pointless? Or is it smarter to just adapt, survive, even if it means compromising what you believe in?
Those are tough questions, and the movie doesn't give you any easy answers.
Not at all. And speaking of tough questions, let's talk about the symbolism in El Hoyo because it's everywhere.
Oh, yeah. It's like every frame is loaded with meaning.
The food, the levels, and then there's the little girl.
Right. Out of nowhere, this little girl just appears on the platform one day.
It's like a glitch in the system.
In this brutal, cynical world, she's like this little ray of innocence.
It makes you wonder, what's her purpose? Is she even real?
Right. A prisoner.
Hmm.
A hallucination. A symbol of something else entirely.
And we never really know for sure, do we?
It's left open to interpretation.
Which is part of what makes it so fascinating.
And then there's Goring. He becomes fixated on getting her to the top, like she's the key to changing everything.
It's a desperate act, selfless, but also kind of heartbreaking.
Yeah, like, can one person, even with the best intentions, really make a difference in a system like that?
It's the big question, isn't it?
So, like, we're left with this question, right? Can one person, even trying their best, actually change a system as messed up as El Hoyo?
It's almost like, are we all just stuck on our own levels, hoping we don't end up somewhere even worse?
And the thing is, this whole vertical prison, it's not just some crazy sci-fi idea, right?
Not at all. I mean, think about it. We see these systems everywhere.
Yeah, like the gap between the rich and the poor, it feels like it's getting wider and wider.
It's like those in power, they want to keep things exactly as they are.
And those trying to climb up, well, it feels impossible sometimes.
Exactly. It's like that saying, the system isn't broken, it was designed this way, and El Hoyo, it just throws that truth right in your face.
It makes you think twice about taking things for granted.
For sure. And it's one thing to read about inequality, right? But to see it so vividly, to feel Goring's desperation, you connect with that on a different level.
Totally. You feel like you're right there with him, trying to claw your way out of that hole.
It makes those statistics real. You know, those numbers on a page become actual people, real struggles.
It kind of makes you feel guilty, you know? Like we're all complicit in some way.
It's uncomfortable, for sure, but sometimes feeling uncomfortable, that's the first step to making a change.
So what are we supposed to do with that feeling? That mix of guilt, maybe a little hope that things could be different?
I think El Hoyo challenges us to do more than just watch, you know. It's like it's begging us to look around at the systems we're part of.
To question why things are the way they are.
Exactly, to ask ourselves, what can I do to actually change things, even if it's just a small act?
To be more like Goring, right? To stand up for what's right, even when it's hard.
Because it's easy to get cynical, to just accept that the world is an unfair place.
But we don't have to accept it, right?
Right. El Hoyo reminds us that even in the darkest places, there's always a chance for things to change.
It's up to us to make those changes happen.
Exactly. We can't just sit back and wait for someone else to fix it. We all have a part to play.
It's a powerful message, and one that sticks with you long after the credits roll.
It certainly does. And on that note, we'll leave you with this. Think about your own life, your own community.
Where do you see these imbalances playing out? What can you do in your own way to make a difference?
Food for thought, right. And sometimes that's all it takes, a little spark to ignite change.
And that's a wrap on our deep dive into El Hoyo. Until next time, keep asking those tough questions and keep diving deep.